as ordinary till you see the core side of it.
And what you're looking for is the story behind the news.
We bring it to you from Lagos, the commercial capital of Nigeria.
Giving you all sides and political stories round the clock.
Every detail from the start line to the final whistle.
CoreTV News, expanding your view.
Hello and welcome to CoreTV Primetime News. I am Ebulomo Adekunle. In our major story, residents of Michika and Baza towns of Adamawa State raise alarm that Boko Haram members are raping women and killing people of the communities. Also in this program, Senate President David Mark wants federal government to confront and defeat Boko Haram insurgents before contemplating dialogue. Nigerian Bar Association seeks reprieve for soldiers sentenced to death for mutiny. And outside Nigeria, Ukraine parliament grants amnesty and self-rule to rebels. And now the details. Residents of Michika and Baza towns of Adamawa State have raised alarm that, contrary to the claims of military authorities, the towns have yet to be recaptured by federal troops from the violent Islamic sect Boko Haram, which overran the communities penultimate Sunday. The residents lamented that the insurgents had maintained their grip on the two towns, alleging that the terrorists had continued to slaughter innocent people and raping women trapped in the towns while plundering property without anyone challenging them. A coalition of non-governmental organizations consisting of Christian Association of Nigeria, Michika Chapter, Civil Servants Forum, the Northern Christian Elders Forum, and Kamwe Christian Community Forum at a press briefing at the NUJ Press Center, Yola, on Tuesday. The spokesperson for the forum, Joel Billy, who is also the chairman of CAN in Michika, noted that the report by the military that its troops had recaptured Michika and Baza were untrue, saying the insurgents were still in control of the two communities. He added that following the inability of the soldiers to dislodge the insurgents from the town, many people that were trapped on mountains, mostly women and children, were dying of hunger. Senate President David Mark wants the government to confront and defeat Boko Haram insurgents before contemplating dialogue. Mark also advised the authorities to devise new strategies to defeat a group he insists is out to humiliate Nigeria as a sovereign nation. The Senate President made this known in his welcome address to senators after their annual recess. While noting that Nigeria is at war, Mark urged the federal lawmakers to cooperate with the government in its bid to confront the challenge headlong. The Senate President also stressed the need for the financiers of Boko Haram and their collaborators to be brought to book. In the same vein, the Senate, as on resumption from its summer recess, referred President Goodluck Jonathan's request for a $1 billion loan to fight insurgency to Senate Committee on Finance. The request, which was sent in just before senators began their recess, was read out by Senate leader Victor Indoma Egba and was promptly referred to the Finance Committee. The committee, headed by Senator Ahmed McCarthy, has 1 week to turn in its reports for consideration. An army court-martial has sentenced 12 soldiers to death for inciting mutiny among troops engaged in the ongoing war against insurgency. The soldiers were said to be the ringleaders of troops who fired at the general officer commanding GOC of 7th Division, Abubakar Muhammad, in Maiduguri. 18 soldiers stood trial on a 6-count charge, but 12 were found guilty of mutiny and attempted murder and handed the death penalty.
These are the 18 soldiers who were said to have led the May 15 mutiny in Maiduguri. For several weeks, they have been facing a court-martial away from media glare. But it's now Judgment Day, and for the first time, journalists were allowed into the venue of the court-martial. The soldiers, who are mostly privates, are facing a 6-count charge bordering on mutiny, an offense considered grievous in the military. Even their countenance showed how bad the situation is. The president of the court-martial gave an insight into the matter, and lawyers representing the soldiers pleaded for mercy.
The accused persons committed acts or acts of insubordination against their commander or against the command of 7th Division Nigerian Army. Under this head, prosecution provided the following evidence. Corporal Jasper Bridalo, prior to his oral evidence in the court, PW2 Lieutenant Colonel Azenda averred in Exhibit P14 that Corporal Jasper, Corporal Fire Ono, and Private Ifeanyi played prominent roles in the unfortunate incident. He maintained his allegation in Exhibit P12 when he said in answer to question 29, which group of soldiers in your battalion revolted against the General Officer Commanding 7th Div? And he said Corporal Jasper Bridalo, Lance Corporal Friday Ono, and Private Ifeanyi Alukagbe should be able to help in this regard. In his answer to question 56, PW2 specifically pinned Corporal Jasper as one who inspired the rebellion, and that the 3 soldiers he mentioned were among the rampaging soldiers.
After the 9-member board returned from a short break, it was clear that the lawyer's plea failed to sway the military court. 12 of the 18 soldiers were found guilty on 3 of the 6 charges.
For count 5, Awo, you were found guilty. You are sentenced to 28 days IHL. 2010 NA of the 65-6912 Private Chocho Jeremiah. For count 6, you are reprimanded. IHL means imprisonment with hard labor. 28 days imprisonment with hard labor. And for count 6, you are reprimanded. 03 NA of the 53 of the 816 Lance Corporal Stephen Clement. For count 3, you were found guilty and you are therefore sentenced to 2 years imprisonment. But for count 4, mutiny, 2003 NA of the 53 of the 816 Lance Corporal Stephen Clement, you were found guilty for mutiny, therefore sentenced to death by firing squad.
5 others were discharged and acquitted, while 1 was found guilty of absenting himself from duty and is to spend 28 days in jail with hard labor. The court acknowledged the right of the soldiers to appeal the judgment, but also noted that the sentences were subject to confirmation by higher authorities.
And in what seemed to be a reaction to that report, the Nigerian Bar Association wants the military authorities to commute the death sentence passed on 12 soldiers to jail term. The soldiers were found guilty of leading a mutiny against their commanding officer during the ongoing war against insurgency, but NBA is seeking reprieve for them. Its newly elected president, Augustine Alege, made the call at his maiden press briefing and the inauguration of the Constitution Review Committee in Abuja.
What we make here is we are losing so many of our soldiers who are being killed by Boko Haram. Why then do we want to kill some by ourselves? At times like this, the country should and the military should consider other forms of punishment other than capital punishment. But it's the law, and they are within their rights to exercise and apply their law. But those convicted also have a right of appeal, and we hope and pray that they will exercise their rights of appeal.
The European Union is committing 5.56 million euros That is about 1.1 billion naira to efforts to mop up small arms and light weapons from West Africa. The project is an intervention program that is designed to run in 6 ECOWAS member states for 3 years in the first instance. It will, among others, encourage voluntary surrender of weapons in return for community-based development projects. The project, which was launched on Tuesday in Abuja, is to be managed by UNDP in conjunction with ECOWAS.
To provide this technical and financial assistance to our member states in support of the action plan for the implementation of the ECOWAS Convention on Small Arms and Light Weapons and other small arms control activities. This action will continue to be one of our regional priorities and is now necessary due to the fact that proliferation of small arms, emerging threats of terrorism, organized crime, and cross-border trafficking have actually increased within the past 3 years across the West African region.
The ECOWAS European Union Small Arms Project, with a total European Union contribution of €5.56 million, the European Union, ECOWAS and the UNDP take a joint and concrete step to address this menace to regional peace, security and development. As a first phase of response, this project will implement pilot weapons collection programs in 6 selected countries within the Mana River Union and the Sahel, namely Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea Forestière, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Northern Nigeria and Mali. Implemented over a 3-year period until June 2017, the specific aim is to strengthen community security through voluntary arms collection of small and light weapons in exchange for community development projects.
The federal government has assured the Ogoni community of its readiness to address the environmental challenges posed by oil spills. Minister of Petroleum, Dezani Alison Madueke, delivered the message at a 2-day stakeholders meeting in Abuja. She also maintained actions would be taken on the outcome of the meeting to restore the Ogoni environment in line with the UN report.
To welcome you to this workshop on the environmental restoration of Ogoni land, and to dialogue and work with you to inject what we consider necessary fresh urgency at this time and innovative methods into the process of restoring Ogoni land. As we are all aware, the federal government of Nigeria commissioned the United Nations Environment Program, UNEP, in 2006 to carry out an environmental assessment of Ogoni land in the River State of Nigeria. On August the 4th, 2011, UNEP then submitted their report to the federal government of Nigeria, which for the first time placed in the public arena scientific and empirical evidence as to the nature, extent, and impact of hydrocarbon contamination in Ogoni land. A Presidential Implementation Committee, the PIC, was then set up by the federal government of Nigeria, chaired by the Minister of Petroleum Resources, to review the UNEP report. And after thorough consideration of the recommendations of that report by the PIC, the President and Commander-in-Chief, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, GCFR, based on the PIC's report and in line with the Petroleum Industries Action Plan and provisions of the Petroleum Act, approved the establishment of the Hydrocarbon Pollution Restoration Project, HYPREP, on the 20th of July, 2012. Now, HYPREP was actually established as a special unit under the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources, and its duties, amongst others, were to restore all communities impacted by hydrocarbon contamination in Nigeria and any or all matters that the federal government may, from time to time, assign to that project, to design and provide a robust, independent, coordinated guidance for the surveillance and monitoring of all petroleum infrastructures in Nigeria. And of course, in regards to the issue at hand, It was also meant to implement the actionable recommendations of the UNEP Environmental Assessment Report.
Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar kicks against automatic presidential ticket in APC. Find out more after this timeout.
There is an Ebola virus epidemic in some West African countries. The Nigerian government wants you to be aware and watch out against the spread of Ebola in your community. Help keep our country safe and watch out for severe cases of fever, headaches, diarrhea, chest and abdominal pain, sore throat, cough, red eyes and bleeding from the eyes, ears and nose, especially when these symptoms are found in persons coming into Nigeria from other West African countries. Protect yourself. Wash your hands regularly with soap and running water or use a hand sanitizer. Avoid contact with the blood, urine, feces or saliva of animals like bats, monkeys, gorillas, chimpanzees or infected persons. The Ebola virus is deadly. Don't catch it. Don't spread it. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information.
Former Vice President and Chieftain of the All Progressives Congress, Atiku Abubakar, insists that there is no provision for automatic presidential tickets in the party. He argued that those pushing for it are people who are afraid of testing their popularity among party members. The former vice president spoke with journalists on the sidelines of a political meeting in Abuja.
It is not going to be possible. It's not going to be so. I bet you it's not going to be. And even the last, the last convention, only the offices that were not contested were not up for elections. The offices that were contested, elections were held. They took place, and we stayed there. You see that we stayed there throughout the night, until the following day, until the votes were counted and results announced. I have already said that there is nothing like automatic ticket, and those people who are asking for automatic ticket are definitely scared of a contest because they might have been coming from a background or a political background that did not know contest before. And you know, the APC is an amalgamation of a number of political parties that came together, relinquish their identity into APC. So, but APC as currently constituted cannot escape an elective, primaries. There has to be. On what basis are you going to say it is automatic? There is no zoning. There is no allocation. And as they do in PDP, there is nothing like that. So on what basis?
A committee has been constituted by the Nigerian Bar Association to probe the show of shame by councils to both the All Progressives Congress and the People's Democratic Party during the inspection of materials used for the August 9 governorship poll in Osun State. The councils had engaged in war of words and exchanged blows on 2 occasions in the course of the inspection. Rashid reports that the panel is headed by the 3rd Vice President of the Nigerian Bar Association, Akintokubo Oluwole, who says anyone found culpable will be dealt with accordingly.
The show of shame had left many Nigerians wondering if the councils were lawyers indeed. The NBA was equally ruffled and embarrassed. This explains the reason for the committee.
I was directed by the President, Mr. Augustine Alege, to come around and investigate and find out exactly what happened and to make a report to him. I've also been able to speak with some members of councils representing PDP in this matter and also that of APC.
The fog, however, appears to have cleared from the eyes of the councils who have come to realize the demands of the ethics of their profession.
We are working perfectly together. There is no problem. We don't have any problem with either the INEC or even the lawyers on the other side. They are all right.
It's peaceful. Everywhere is calm. We don't have any issue. Unlike before, there was like kind of rancor between the both parties. But as it is now, everything is going on smoothly. and peacefully as we have always wanted.
This notwithstanding, the NBA is unwavering in its resolve to deal decisively with anyone found culpable at the end of the probe.
It is not in our character, and where a lawyer goes to the extent of doing that, definitely the NBA frowns at this. It's a professional misconduct, and such lawyers can be punished for it.
Nigerians are anxiously waiting for the outcome of the probe. Rashid, CoreTV News, Oshogbo.
With barely a month to the expiration of the tenure of Ekiti State Governor Kayode Fayemi in office, the state's government has inaugurated a transition committee which will ensure a seamless takeover of the administration of the state by the incoming government. The committee comprises representatives of both the incoming and outgoing administration. Rashid was at the inauguration and filed in this report.
While speaking at the inauguration of the Transition Committee at the Governor's office in Ado-Ekiti, Ganiu Owolabi and Ebisheni Ajayi, who represent the outgoing and incoming administration, agreed that the process is timely and in accordance with standard transition practice.
In line with the usual practice, a transition committee is expected to make arrangements that will ensure a successful transition from an administration to a newly elected administration. This will also be the focus of this committee.
It is customary, it is in accordance with tradition for the outgoing government to interface with the incoming government.
The two are of the same opinion of the problem-solving nature of the transition.
Where facts are not available, people go to the remote market to source for it. This is an opportunity for us to be able to ask questions and to be able to get clarifications.
This forum will provide an opportunity to clarify issues where necessary, rather than leave anything in doubt or allow outright falsehood to be fed to the general public.
Meanwhile, the state government has directed its ministries, departments, and agencies to prepare all documents that will help the committee to deliver a seamless transition to the next government.
Preparatory to the committee's assignment, the ministries and press staff in the state were requested to prepare their handover notes for collation. This final report will be made available later.
It, however, remains to be seen if the cooperation presently being experienced among the transition committee members will stand the test of time. Rashid, CoreTV News, Ado-Ekiti.
The management and students of the Federal Polytechnic Ado-Ekiti say they have no hand in the protest by residents of Abai-Erifun community in the Ekiti state capital, which degenerated into an attack on the convoy of legal luminary Afe Babalola. The rector of the institution, Taiwo Akonde, while reacting to the protest and attacks, says it was not his students that protested over poor power supply and subsequently attacked Babalola.
These youths actually, on the instigation of the Landlords Association of Aberifun, initiated the protest. Many of these protesters were not students of the Polytechnic. And to buttress this, when the executive of the students' union were alerted, because nobody on campus even knew there was a problem, but when they were alerted and they went near with officials of our Student Affairs Division, they could not recognize any of the protesters, neither could the protesters recognize them.
President of the Student Union of the school, Ajibola Oladapo, described the attack as unwarranted as the students have no reason to protest over power supply or attack Babalola.
I commiserate with our father, an incomparable icon and pioneer of Ekiti State, Are Afe Babalola, son, on the unfortunate attack on his convoy at Abai-Erifun. It is worthy to know that the management of our institution, which also suffers from the same fate, have been doing all that is humanly possible to provide this basic necessity through the use of several generators on the Polytechnic campus. We deeply appreciate this, and thus we had no cause to complain of lack of power supply or water on the campus, nor go on a demonstration over same.
Just an attack on the legal luminary and his university was attributed to poor power supply to Abayerifun, a neighborhood to the Afe Babalola University. A non-governmental group, Women Arise, has condemned the September 22nd resumption date for schools across the country as hasty and risky. The group cautions private and public schools not to resume until the case of Ebola is completely eradicated and the learning environment is well equipped with facilities for detecting EVD-positive patients. Omotayalo completes the story.
Allen Roundabout in Ikeja area of Lagos witnessed a crowd of Nigerians who have once again brought to the fore the importance of creating awareness on the Ebola virus disease as well as preaching against stigmatization. Some Nigerians, including actors present at the awareness campaign, say personal hygiene is key to preventing the virus.
For resumption, we should ensure that some of these schools get their toilets, get their environment very clean. It is important.
Ebola is not a joke, and what concerns everybody also concerns the comedian. We have seen what Ebola has done outside Nigeria. We've seen the number of lives it has taken. Even in our country, Nigeria, we've seen the number of lives it has taken. And we feel that it is our duty to come out and sensitize people. Let them know that personal hygiene is key.
I kick against them resuming on 22nd. They should first of all work hard to make sure that the the Ebola virus has been fully eradicated in Nigeria before allowing our kids resuming.
A Nigerian actor, Kola Olaya, attributes the Ebola disease to a wrath from God, while citing an example from the past.
To the best of my knowledge, there was a disease called Ogodo. This Ogodo has been, and anybody that this Ogodo is attacked, you see the same system this Ebola is that Ogodo. And anybody that catches that disease, they call them Ologodo in Yoruba land.
For campaign organizer and president of Women Arise, Joe Okeodumaki, the Ebola crisis can be overcome if Nigerians join efforts with government to make the disease a foregone conclusion.
They call that private schools are well equipped, that they should resume, while public schools that are suspected that probably they don't have flowing taps, they are not well equipped, should not resume. That is not reasonable. Ebola knows no private or public schools. And I tell you that for once, we all have to sacrifice. For once, we all have to forget the fact that people belong to private or public school. We have to face this monster headlong.
Though the federal and Lagos state governments have performed creditably well at containing the spread of the deadly disease, Nigerians believe that more care should be put in place ahead of the school's resumption. Omotayo Alo, CoreTV News, Lagos.
The United Nations has declared that more than $1 billion is needed to fight the West Africa Ebola outbreak, which has recorded a tenfold increase in the past month. UN's Ebola coordinator, David Nabarro, made the announcement as the World Health Organization described the health crisis as unparalleled in modern times. It has killed 2,461 people this year, half of the 4,985 infected by the virus. According to the Global Health Body, there has, however, been criticism of the slow international response to the epidemic. The U.S. president is to announce plans to send 3,000 troops to Liberia, one of the countries most affected by the outbreak, to help fight the virus. It is also understood the U.S. military will oversee building new treatment centers and help train medical staff. Medical charity Medicine Sans Frontiers, MSF, called on other countries to follow the U.S. lead as the response to outbreak continued to fall dangerously behind. The outbreak began in Guinea before spreading to its neighbors Sierra Leone and Liberia. Nigeria and Senegal have reported some cases but seem to have contained the transmission of the virus. You're watching CoreTV Primetime News. We'll take another break, and when we return, we'll be back with sports stories. Don't go away.
There is an Ebola virus epidemic in some West African countries. The Nigerian government wants you to be aware and watch out against the spread of Ebola in your community. Help keep our country safe and watch out for severe cases of fever, headaches, diarrhea, chest and abdominal pain, sore throat, cough, red eyes, and bleeding from the eyes, ears, and nose, especially when these symptoms are found in persons coming into Nigeria from other West African countries. Protect yourself. Wash your hands regularly with soap and running water, or use a hand sanitizer. Avoid contact with the blood, urine, feces, or saliva of animals like bats, monkeys, gorillas, chimpanzees, or infected persons. The Ebola virus is deadly. Don't catch it. Don't spread it. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information.
You can now watch CoreTV News live from anywhere in the world on our website www.coretvnews.com. Click on Live TV on our website and watch us live.
And welcome to CoreTV Primetime News.
To follow us on Twitter, click on Twitter icon on our website. On Facebook, click on the Facebook and YouTube to see all our previous news production. You can also watch us live on YouTube. Click CoreTV, leave a space, then News. CoreTV News, a 24-hour news station.
And now to the world of sport. The Nigeria Football Federation have announced an extraordinary General Assembly in Warri on Saturday. NFF General Secretary Musa Amadu stated that the event is the first of two of such congresses advised by World Football Governing Body FIFA to usher in a new NFF Executive Committee. All the chairmen and secretaries of the football associations of the 36 states and the FCT, as well as chairmen and secretaries of the various leagues, coaches, association, referees association, and players' unions are expected to be in attendance at the event slated for Brown Hills Event Center. Nigeria League chasers Kano Pillars, Nasarawa United, Enyimba and Dolphins face tricky road trips on Wednesday as the championship race gathers momentum. The league resumes after a 2-week break caused by a referee's boycott. Pillars, who are 2 points clear at the top of the 20-team table, battle FC Taraba in Jalingo, while Nasarawa are in second place on 41 points but face relegation-threatened Crown FC in Ibadan. Third-placed Enyimba, who are away at Aqua United, have 40 points, a point ahead of fourth-place Dolphins. League leaders, Pillars topped the youthful Taraba 3-1 in the reverse fixture with a Rabiu Ali brace and a strike by Hassan Adamu. However, the champions' long injury list has lengthened after international defender Umar Zango was ruled out of the midweek showdown as a result of a muscle problem. Philip Auta, Eneji Otekba, Shagari Muhammad and Kabiru Umar are already on the treatment table. This should mean first starts for former skipper Bala Muhammad as well as newly signed Ekbai, who has been cleared after a long-drawn transfer saga involving his previous club, Aqua United. Despite embarking on a pay strike during the break, Aqua are bullish they will again stop 6-time champions Enyimba in Uyo. Chelsea forward Eden Hazard could sign a new contract within a month and develop into one of the greatest players of his generation, according to manager Jose Mourinho. The 23-year-old Belgium international, who joined from Lille in 2012, has 3 years left on his current deal. The Portuguese described Hazard as a fantastic player who is keen to develop potentially into one of the greats. He was criticized by Mourinho for a lack of defensive awareness after Chelsea were knocked out of last season's Champions League by Atletico Madrid. However, speaking ahead of Wednesday's Champions League Group G match against Schalke at Stamford Bridge, Mourinho said Hazard had since worked hard to develop his game. Barcelona have announced that a pitch at the club's training ground is to be named after former coach Tito Vilanova, who died earlier this year. Vilanova passed away in April, aged 45, after a long battle with cancer. The former Blaugrana midfielder was assistant to Pep Guardiola for 4 trophy-laden seasons before taking the top job himself and guiding the team to the 2012-2013 La Liga title with a record tally of 100 points. The Girona-born coach then had to step down from the position in the summer of 2013 when it became evident that it was impossible for him to continue given the gravity of his illness. His passing just months later was marked by an outpouring of grief from Blaugrana players and fans. The decision to remember Vilanova in this way was announced in a club statement released after Tuesday's board meeting at the Camp Nou. We'll take another break and we'll bring you other stories outside Nigeria. Don't go away.
CoreTV News, expanding your view.
Thank you for being there. Ukraine's parliament has granted self-rule to parts of eastern regions held by pro-Russian rebels, as well as an amnesty for the fighters themselves. The measures are in line with the 5th September ceasefire agreement signed by President Petro Poroshenko. The European and Ukrainian parliament also voted to ratify a major EU-Ukraine association agreement. Meanwhile, Russia says it needs to boost troops in Crimea, Ukraine's peninsula annexed by Moscow in March. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu says a full and self-reliant force must be deployed in the southern region because of the escalating Ukraine crisis and a foreign military build-up. The amnesty affects rebels in the eastern regions, but does not cover the shooting down of the MH17 passenger plane in July. All 298 people on board died. Rebels accused of other grave crimes will not be covered by the new amnesty either. The EU-Ukraine agreement, ratified on Tuesday, lies at the root of Ukraine's crisis. It was Viktor Yanukovych's refusal to sign the deal in November last year that triggered mass protests and his eventual fall from power. Both sides in the Scottish independence referendum debate have seized on a pledge by the 3 main Westminster parties to devolve more power. The pledge, signed by David Cameron, Edie Miliband and Nick Clegg, also promises equitable sharing of resources and preserving the Barnett funding formula. The Yes campaign described it as an insult to voters and asked why it had taken so long to offer. The pledge, signed by the Conservative, Labour and Lib Dem leaders, appears on the front of the Daily Record newspaper. The first part of the agreement promises extensive new powers for the Scottish Parliament, delivered by the process and to the timetable agreed by the 3 parties. The second says the leaders agree that the UK exists to ensure opportunity and security for all by sharing the resources equitably. The third categorically states that the final say on funding for the NHS will lie with the Scottish Government because of the continuation of the Barnett allocation for resources and the powers of the Scottish Parliament to raise revenue. The Barnett formula is the method used to determine the distribution of public spending around the UK. And that's the show tonight on CoreTV Primetime News. On behalf of the production team, I am Ebulomo Adekunle saying have a pleasant night rest. Thank you for watching.